from the far reaches of the Milky Way galaxy. It's Retro Nerd Girl. Today, I'm actually going to do something really odd and review an entire series. And this is the first time I'm doing it. So bear with me. I am trying this out and seeing how it works. And there might be some rambling going on, but I hope you will bear with me. Now, this series serves to bridge a gap between The Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope, where we were first introduced to Obi Wan Kenobi, or Old Ben Kenobi, in 1977. Thus, when watching this series, one is constantly reminded of the events of A New Hope, comparing what is unfolding in the series' storyline, as well as expecting to experience new, exciting stories surrounding Star Wars legacy characters like Palpatine, or at this time, it would be Darth Sidious, and of course, Lord Darth Vader. Does the series deliver? I have to say, for me, it did. I was truly able to pleasantly get a lot more out of this series than I expected. To be completely honest, I walked away from Star Wars after the prequels, like many people did. I don't hate the prequels. I think they're really, really good movies, contrary to a lot of opinion out there. But I was highly disappointed, still searching my feelings on the reason why I was completely disappointed. But through the years, I still casually followed a lot of Star Wars content, but I couldn't really connect with it as a fan anymore. I think that when I heard that Kenobi was getting his own series on Disney Plus, I was strangely excited to revisit the character played by Ewan McGregor, and had hoped that it would fill in what I felt was missing from my experience. In the prequels, Ewan's performance was incredible, delivering nostalgia, mirroring Alec Guinness's performance of the character in A New Hope, but also giving the audience a youthful hero to balance out Anakin Skywalker's brooding angst as he was losing his struggle with the dark side of the Force. A standalone movie was in the works for many years after Revenge of the Sith, and then it was going to be a spin-off anthology film. After the box office disappointment of Solo, a Star Wars story, in 2018, it was shelved. And I don't know why, because I think Solo was actually was a good movie. I liked it and enjoyed it, but box office means a lot. After a while, the project of Obi-Wan was resurrected into what we have now, which is the series. Ewan took the role of executive producer, and Deborah Chow directed the project, who had previous success directing some of the most adored episodes of the Mandalorian series, also on Disney Plus. The show begins with a fantastic, splashy montage of the events of the prequels as a refresher, and that montage ends with Order 66, which leaves the younglings on their own to figure out how to escape this horrible massacre of the Jedi in the Jedi Temple. This particular scene screams, "Something's important about this. Please, don't forget what happens in this moment." But it abruptly cuts, and then we are brought into a period of time 10 years later. Speculations began to circulate amongst viewers since episode 1 as to who these younglings are and why it matters in the story. Now, it's 10 years later, and we catch up with Obi-Wan working a labor-intensive job in the desert, filleting a mega-gigantic sand creature. And when he can, he spies on Luke Skywalker. We all expected Obi-Wan to be a hermit by the time he meets Luke in 9 years, but I don't think I was actually expecting to see him there just yet. The new regime in the galaxy won the war, and most of the Jedi were killed, but they're all now being hunted. He lost his best friend, his Jedi family, and and his will to help those in need. He feels completely responsible for the training of Anakin, who was an integral part of Order 66 and the downfall of the Jedi Order. All of that is just weighing on him constantly. The only thing that keeps him going is the possibility that he may be able to train Luke so he can redeem himself and the way of the Jedi will not be lost forever. So you can get into the mindset of Obi-Wan right away, we understand. And the show was really great at slowly showing us a transformation for Obi-Wan. And Ewan was just as solid of an actor as he ever was, allowing the audience to see this character in such a vulnerable state. The character is so obsessed with his past that he is unaware of the many atrocities that are still out there. And I believe that he knows that the Jedi are being hunted, but he just wants to disappear into the crowd. He doesn't want to be the hero anymore like he once was, because it holds so much guilt for him, and it holds him as a prisoner, paralyzed by regret and shame. And I totally understand what he's going through. I kind of feel like that myself. It's such a weird thing. He feels very relatable. I know a lot of people were not happy to see Obi-Wan, their hero, in such a predicament, but I thought it was very realistic to portray him in this way. And I enjoyed it, as long as we were going to get a transformation during the series, which we did. Now, traumatized young Jedi Nari, played by Benny Safdie, finds him and begs him for help, which he refuses. And this lines up with the hero's journey, which is a common storyline that is used to tell good stories, wherein the hero refuses the call to action. He tells Nari that he can't help, and the next day, the Jedi was killed and hung in the middle of the town square and made an example of, as to say, this is what happens to Jedi during this new regime. Obi-Wan gets a chance to go through his transformation because of the actions of new characters. The main conflict in the story stems from the arrival of a group called the Inquisitors on Tatooine. I had never heard of the Inquisitors before, but apparently they were a part of the non-theatrical lore. So one has to do a bit of research to catch up with some of this business. And so I did. I went into my nerdy mode and did some research. According to the Star Wars fan site Wikipedia, the Inquisitors, or the Inquisitorius program, was an organization of Force-sensitive dark side agents that Palpatine created to hunt down the remaining Jedi who had survived Order 66 at the end of the Clone Wars as part of the Great Jedi Purge. Darth Vader was insulted that Palpatine did not trust that he could do this on his own, and it was very known that Vader hated the Inquisitors. But he, of all things, was entrusted to be their commander-in-chief, and he would often torture and delimb them to teach them the lessons of loss, which he was well familiar with. Under Vader was the Grand Inquisitor. Under the Grand Inquisitor are the Inquisitors that are assigned a number and a surname of brother or sister. Besides hunting the Jedi, they also hunted rebellious individuals and abducted many Force-sensitive children for Project Harvester. Wait a minute. What is Project Harvester, you ask? This is a project that would raise Force-sensitive babies and children to become dark side, Force-wielding Imperial agents. This was all done to prevent the Jedi Order from ever reforming again. And I really wish some of this information made its way into the show to explain to the mass viewers, but I guess that they assumed that the viewers would already have watched the Inquisitors on their own on the very popular Emmy-nominated Star Wars Rebels television show, which aired for 4 seasons on Disney XD from 2014 to 2018. The Inquisitors and Project Harvester sound fascinating and creepy. I would have loved a sneak peek at this in action, but it's not too late to include it into future seasons of the show. There's also an Ahsoka show in the works that may venture deeper into the storyline for the extended universe, since she had some interactions with the Inquisitors as well. Now, of the Inquisitors, we have the Grand Inquisitors, we have the fifth brother, we have the fourth sister, and among the Inquisitors is a young girl by the name of Reva, who is the third sister. And she appears to be hell-bent on hunting down Obi Wan Kenobi of all the Jedi, because she knows that this will impress Darth Vader. At first, it looks like she's a fan of the Sith Lord, but she specifically wants to become the next Grand Inquisitor so she can get close enough to Darth Vader to kill him when he least expects an attack. She puts up a very, very obnoxious front. It's, really, really obnoxious front on purpose, often yelling and threatening and harming villagers. Her actions are so rude and crude and aggressive that her comrades are often annoyed by her selfish tactics and despise her. It's totally understandable because she's not a team player. She's simply not likable by the people in the series, and also, unfortunately, many of the audience members watching the series didn't like her either. It takes a while to get to understand why she is behaving this way, but some viewers easily figured out the connection between Reva and the opening massacre during Order 66. She was indeed one of the children at that scene, and as the group of children were trying to make an escape, Anakin Skywalker found them and slaughtered them. She survived her wounds somehow and faked her death by hiding underneath the dead bodies of her classmates. It sounds chilling, as it unintentionally mirrors some of the horrific stories heard from survivors of school shootings in the real world. Now, with a chance to tell Reva's story, the actor playing her, Moses Ingram, excellently brought out her true vulnerability in episodes 4 and 5. It's no coincidence that the only person who was able to understand her and later guide her was Obi-Wan. The series does take its time on this, but once the connection occurs, I understood Reva's actions and why she behaves as she does. After observing her closely and rewatching the series, her character motivation is solid, and I have trouble keeping my eyes dry when she talks about her experience as a youngling. It's heartbreaking. Reva's story was in the season to show us the fallacy of the dark side of the Force. Her foolish plan was doomed from the start because she was blinded by her anger, her loss. And does that sound familiar? At the core of it, she never matured past the point of her trauma, so she has no intelligence behind her actions, and that is what's frustrating about the character. She is so transparent to the point that Darth Vader and everyone around her knows her plan, especially the audience. Vader only keeps her alive because her anger appears as ambition, and she assists them in their hunt for Jedi very well. The Grand Inquisitor admitted that for some time she was useful, and in truth, she was able to lure out Obi Wan Kenobi to the surface after 10 years of being undercover. As much as they hate her, she does get results. As I mentioned, she is doing all of this to get close enough to kill Vader, and there really wasn't an opportunity for her to do that. She finally gets her chance, but she is so over her head that it is quite pathetic. Darth Vader is not only too powerful, he's too skilled of a fighter, and I admired her tenacity, running after him time after time again to engage in this fight, but he was able to disarm her so easily and basically school her on what it's like to face off with Vader, even for someone with her power level. I enjoyed everything about that scene, especially the accompanying music. I loved every minute of that confrontation. And the setup is more or less like a tragedy because there are several moments that I was absolutely certain that she was going to die. And for all intents and purposes, maybe she should have died or could have died. But and that created a lot of tension, but it was still a wonder how she survived in the series with 2 impalings and a rough beating from the Larses. I mean, but hey, Darth Maul survived being cut in half. Darth Vader survived being burnt alive, and Boba Fett survived the Sarlacc pit. So it's a little too late for realism here. Now, so let's get to Darth Vader in this story. Wow, he is incredible in this. The performance is a combination of stuntmen, body doubles, Hayden Christensen, and although James Earl Jones is credited as the voice of Darth Vader, I don't think he actually recorded any new lines for the series. A company called Respeecher used advanced AI software to recreate Darth Vader's voice, and the same technology was previously used in The Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett to clone Mark Hamill's voice. The story starts out showing Vader in his most vulnerable time, healing as much as he can in his bacta tank. Even in that state, there's still a defiance and aggression in his eyes. He is fueled by anger, but unlike Reva, he is able to manage it towards a larger scheme, a larger purpose. His physical prowess and menacing swagger is only a small part of the equation. He brings with him a terrifying disregard for life in exchange for getting results. None of it is ever satisfying for him because he's filled with so much rage constantly. Everything was taken away from him. His love, his chances of ever being loved again, what he thinks was his unborn child, the light side of the Force, his natural body, and ultimately his humanity. He cannot enjoy the simple pleasures in life. And he's not just a bad guy. He is someone in perpetual pain all of the time. At first I thought he blamed Obi-Wan for all of it, but the truth is that he actually blames himself for failing to save Padme and causing her death. There is this whole through line of attachment and loss throughout the entire series, and that is the problem for both sides of the Force. The Jedi's taught that attachment can lead towards the dark side, and the dark side users don't encourage attachment because it blinds them to empathy. Obi-Wan, Darth Vader, and Reva are all kind of connected into this weird storyline where they're all obsessed with their past and what it was that they lost. And I just love that. I love that subtle kind of that story connection between the three of them, to be honest. I know a lot of people don't see it, they don't care for it, but I liked it. Now, what the show also promoted was an epic rematch between Darth Vader and Obi-Wan. So this is sort of like the rematch of the century as it was marketed as. Their first rematch really was underwhelming because Obi-Wan was in horrible condition, outmatched after losing his talents with the Force. However, the series shows us how powerful Darth Vader can be when he goes into action. This is something that I have actually never really seen except for a small little bit in Rogue One. Darth Vader dominates Obi-Wan and drags him through fire, enacting a bit of revenge for being left for dead and set on fire on Mustafar. It doesn't even come close to what Vader has been through, but it's just a taste. In many ways, because Obi-Wan's attachment to Anakin and inability to end his struggle at Mustafar is what creates the robotic monstrosity that is Darth Vader. And we get the feeling from this series that killing Anakin is something he can never do, and vice versa for Darth Vader, until A New Hope. When Vader simply allowed Obi-Wan to escape, I think it blew everybody's mind. We were all saying, "What? He's right there. What are you doing?" But it also tells me that these two are in sort of a compelling relationship with each other, that they can never kill each other at this point. There's too much history there for them both. And at best, they are just really doomed to encounter each other as another sparring session. And it's almost like a routine that Darth Vader remembers doing a long time ago as sort of Anakin's unfinished business. And he's clearly excited by these encounters. I mean, that's how I saw it. I thought that was an interesting look into their relationship. I know some people are probably thinking, hey, you're reaching for this deeper layer. But I was able to enjoy the show with this sort of outlook on what was happening, to be honest. And enjoying things are much more fun than not enjoying them. Now, we learn more about this after a well-placed flashback revisiting a training session between Obi-Wan and Anakin when he was a Padawan. This is where we finally see Hayden, and it's so good. Hayden Christensen rewatched all of the Star Wars movies and binge-watched Star Wars The Clone Wars that was released in 2008 and Star Wars Rebels in 2014 to prepare for his performance. And I suppose that would be a good list for us all to watch. I was expecting some de-aging technology used on him based on the time period that he was remembering. It looks like there was a little de-aging used on Obi-Wan, but Anakin was represented as Hayden's actual age while shooting the series. And I kind of love that because it gives it a little bit of depth. Like, hey, this is Darth Vader's memory, not actually a flashback. So what's really cool about it in translation is that this is just him reliving the past. Before the training starts, he stares at Padme's apartment building, and I think that is because she was his failure. And I think it's a wonderful scene to give us some delicious member berries to snack on, but also give us another little detail about Darth Vader and his personality, a little bit more about his psyche. I personally loved it. In his memory, Obi-Wan told him that he would always be a Padawan until he gives up the need to be right. But I think all Vader seems to hear in this message is that he will always be a Padawan until he defeats Obi-Wan. This series is about their broken relationship and how it affects the people around them. Reva exploits it for her personal revenge. In fact, I feel as if the Reva storyline is similar to Anakin's storyline, where Anakin lost his humanity to become Vader, killing children. And when it came down to it, Reva just couldn't do it. She couldn't become the person she hated. And I love that aspect of the series because this is where we encounter a theme of mercy. I think this is obvious. Mercy is where a Force user can break away from the dark side. Those who have no mercy have embraced the dark side. Vader's mercy for his son broke him away from the dark side in Return of the Jedi. So that was kind of where my thought process was in enjoying the whole story plot of Reva deciding no, she could not destroy a child in order to get her quote-unquote revenge of some kind. Mercy dislodges Reva from the dark side when she sees herself in her intended victim. Again, Moses Ingram did a fantastic job with these scenes. Obi-Wan gains his strength back, and boy, is it glorious! I was so happy when this happened because he gets the upper hand in his final confrontation with Vader in the series, wounding Vader and cracking part of his helmet, revealing a portion of Anakin's face. And I think before that point, he could have killed Vader. But seeing his face really kind of stops him in his tracks and reminds him that his brother or his friend was under there. This is when he falls apart. And I was tearing up myself. And just hearing him apologize as he did on Mustafar, because he thinks that he's responsible for everything that happened to Anakin. But Vader explains that he is not Obi-Wan's failure. Obi-Wan didn't kill Anakin Skywalker. Vader did. And that moment is such a mind-blowing, epic event. It's wonderful because hearing that along with Hayden's voice and James Earl Jones's voice melding together, it hit me so hard, and it looks like it hit Obi-Wan hard too. The scene was masterfully done, with Anakin's face being lit from blue to red and the evil little curl of a smile on his lips. Wow! Hayden did a wicked job on that. He is really getting his Vader on here. And it was a highlight of the series. It's one of the most iconic scenes for me in the entire franchise. Right up there with Vader revealing to Luke that he was his father. I mean, I know for a lot of people that's sacrilege, but I really enjoyed that scene. And this really drove home for me that Vader is consumed by self-hate. Like I was talking about before, Vader hates Anakin. It was Anakin that was too weak to save Padme, his mother, to stand up to the Jedi Council. It was Anakin that was once a slave. Vader is confident. Vader is strong. Vader gets results. But, did he really kill Anakin? No. I mean, we all know that eventually Darth Vader gets redemption at the end by saving Luke. And, I think all through his lifetime, he was always battling the scales between being Anakin and Darth Vader underneath that mask. That mask of Vader really covers up any kind of emotion. So there may have been moments in all of these movies where you see Darth Vader, where he could have had a big smile on his face, or he could have been sad, or he may have had remorse in his eyes. You don't know because you can't see past that mask. And Luke was able to pick up on his emotions. He was able to pick up on his conflict once he became a Jedi. And this duality is how Anakin / Darth Vader compartmentalizes his identity. So cool. I've become a bigger Darth Vader fan from this series, honestly. Now, the smile itself is the strangest piece to it that gives me chills just seeing it. I think he smiles because, again, he's still sparring with Obi-Wan. He's gloating and bantering to psych out Obi-Wan at this point. And his statement does have an incredible effect on Obi-Wan. I mean, this is like eye-opening. This is the epiphany moment for Obi-Wan. Like, oh. And it was just beautiful. This was Vader's way of saying that it didn't matter what Obi-Wan did. He was always going to turn to the dark side. And that really kind of blows my mind when I think about it. It just like, oh, there was no chance. No one could have stopped this from happening. And once that's clear to Obi-Wan, he had to walk away in defeat. And I say defeat. I mean, yes, he won the physical fight, but he lost the battle of trying to rescue his friend. He had to accept that Anakin was truly gone, and even if he was still there, hiding underneath the mask, hiding underneath the robotics, Obi-Wan wasn't going to be able to be the one to turn him to the light. I really felt that the moment really hit him like a ton of bricks, and even me, it hit me with a ton of bricks, because I've been told something similar from people I used to know and be friends with, like, just hearing that they changed and they would never be the same person as I knew them, it broke my heart. And while seeing this, it broke my heart for Obi-Wan, you know, seeing him like realize your dreams of ever trying to bring back your friend is gone. He truly is dead. He died. It makes Obi-Wan's statement of Vader killing Anakin Skywalker true in A New Hope. And that was wonderful. I thought it was great. And you know what? The acting in this scene really did not disappoint because of the intensity of that moment and how important it was. Now, there's a moment where it looks like Obi-Wan pities Vader. And that nuance is not easy to portray, but it's there. And this is all due to Ewan McGregor's incredible performance. Wow. I mean, that sent me into a flood of tears, reaching for my tissue box and, you know, quivering with sadness and just seeing one of my favorite characters, Obi-Wan, facing his biggest defeat. Obi-Wan and Vader's relationship makes the moment that they meet in A New Hope hold meaning for me in a new way. I've always saw their relationship as two warriors in battle that used to be on the same side. But now I understand why Obi-Wan is so cold to him and spoke so spiteful of him in A New Hope. This makes more sense to me now. Vader killed Anakin, his brother, and this holds a lot more weight. There's a reason why he's pissed off at Vader. This is the guy who stole his brother away from him. I feel it, you know? And there's a line in the original series where Vader said, Obi-Wan once felt as you do, meaning that Obi-Wan thought that he could be turned from the dark side. And I believe this is still true. The act of facing Vader in battle is the only way to reach out to Anakin at this point. He's an angry person who is all about the battle. At the beginning of the battle between Obi-Wan and Vader, Vader asked him, did you come here to kill me? And Obi-Wan says, I will do as I must. And I think he evaded the direct question because he was not sure what he needed to do to get to Anakin. I love the way mercy is on display again by Obi-Wan by not killing Darth Vader and not killing Reva. And not killing Darth Vader while he's at his weakest, because he is technically not really a threat at the moment. Some viewers thought that he should have killed Darth Vader because of what he is going to be doing in the future. To kill him right then and there would be saving the galaxy of one less bad guy, but it would also be venturing towards the dark side. Unless he was forced to defend himself. And this is how Anakin went further down the road of the dark side when he killed Count Dooku. It was an execution. And so Obi-Wan is staying true to his Jedi path by not killing Darth Vader, by not demonstrating his dominance over him and giving him a killing blow. He is the hero that I never knew that I needed. Now, there is some conversation from many viewers that Obi-Wan should have killed Reva too because she knew too much. Again, just because she knows too much, that doesn't give anyone the right to kill her. Maybe detain her, but not to kill her. And again, to be a light side user, Obi-Wan couldn't do that unless Reva decided to attack him in like a last desperate attempt. Otherwise, again, it would be flat out execution. Also, it would be giving into his fear of the unknown, and the fear of the future is what provokes this whole, well, let's kill this person because we don't know what they're capable of. That's not the way of the Jedi. And I know it sounds ridiculous because that's how we've kind of been conditioned to think, but that is about the rules of the Jedi. That's precisely why it's hard to be a Jedi. Now, I wanted to go on and move on to Princess Leia. She was a big standout in the film who was brought into the story because Reva found out that there was a connection between Obi-Wan and her adopted father, Bail Organa, being played by Jimmy Smith, who reprises his role from the prequels. Reva's plan to lure out Obi-Wan by kidnapping the princess being wonderfully played by Vivian Lyra Blair. At the time of filming, I believe she was 9 years old. She already has 16 acting credits already at the precious age of 10 and has been working since she was 3 years old. She's most notable for her work in Bird Box alongside Sandra Bullock in 2018. Actually, naturally, Vivian doesn't look anything like Leia, but with similar hairstyles, eye color darkening, and mirroring many of the outfits that Leia wore during the original trilogy, she looks spot on. Vivian's phenomenal acting is what really sells it by not only serving us an adorable mini version of the character, but wearing a lot of the mannerisms of Carrie Fisher's portrayal of the character. Leia gets rescued twice, and each time we get to see Obi-Wan get stronger and stronger with the Force again, and it feels as if he's getting back to where he was in the Revenge of the Sith very slowly. Of the things that Obi-Wan sees in his mind to give him the strength to defeat Vader are visions of Leia and Luke, which represents the future of the galaxy in the fight against the Empire. Luke and Leia are a new hope for Obi-Wan and the galaxy. This is the hope Obi-Wan needed to regain his connection to the Force. He lost it when the war ended, and he found it again in the children of his beloved friends, Anakin and Padme. They were both worth living and fighting for. Where is my tissue box? I mean, the tears. I thought it was just like so moving, so inspiring, so sweet. And I know a lot of people hate that moment. They think it should be Qui-Gon Jinn's voice to guide him out of this trouble. And I'm like, I don't know. I just love the idea of him seeing hope in the children, and looking towards hope is yet another way towards the light side of the Force. And the best part for me between Leia and Obi-Wan were the quiet moments where the two characters got to really interact with each other. And we get to see how Leia has these incredible abilities in the way of intuition and displays so much empathy and kindness where she can. It was truly beautiful to see. She is gifted with the Force, but it's not an overt use of it, so it can fly right underneath the radar. No one can really detect it, but you can clearly see she's doing something. And this is how Carrie Fisher played the character too. I was pleasantly surprised by this. Not to mention, I think she's so cute and adorable. What a little sweetie. Yeah, she was amazing. We also see the definite shadow of Padme in the character, in which Obi-Wan mentions the diplomat. Now let's talk about a character that I really enjoyed. This is where I want to talk about the redemption theme as well that lingers on the series, which is the process of making future actions better than past faults. It's really kind of a wonderful little teaching moment, if you will, or theme. Through Leia and Obi-Wan's escape from Reva, they encounter Tala, an Imperial officer who is seeking redemption from rounding up and aiding the murder of Force-sensitive individual. She is doing so now by aiding them instead. Her character was played by Indira Varma, who was instantly intriguing in all her scenes, doing a lot of dramatic heavy lifting for her short time in the series. Tala's motivations are clear, and you get the sense that she's going to try to undo her sins for the rest of her life. And as a result, she sacrificed herself to buy the escaping families of Force-sensitive people sometime during the battle, and I love this character. She does truly redeem herself. And there's a bit of discussion where viewers were debating if Reva was redeemed for her terrible actions by having some mercy at the end. And Does her break from the dark side suddenly make her a Jedi or absolved from her terrible deeds? No. She can remain evil but draw the line when it comes to killing children, or she can choose to just be a better person. Redemption is not a simple thing. It's a long road of hard work. And Tala was a better example of a redemptive character because she did the work by actually saving lives. Reva is in the beginning of her road to redemption, possibly, if she chooses. And this is why I really loved Tala so much. And so did Leia, it seems, because you can see how Leia was fascinated by her. Obi-Wan gifts Leia's Tala's holster, and it serves as a glimpse of who Leia will one day become. You get the sense that Leia goes through an arc from being a playful kid without any real aim to a young lady with a purpose to help others, and also grateful for her position as princess and appreciating the supportive love of a family. I love that so much. I really did. I really loved all of that. Now back to Tala. Tala also guides Obi-Wan and Leia to the path, an imperial network that helped Jedi and other force wielders, which is the precursor to the rebellion, sort of, kind of. The path was led by Roken and played by O'Shea Jackson Jr. with a charismatic grit, which I enjoyed so very much. This character was a real surprise for me, even though he was sparingly used. As well, Kamal Nanjiani, who comedically rounds out the cast as an ex-con man, Haja Estri, was also working with the path while swindling families out of money. He's not the ideal good guy, but he's got some of Han Solo's vibes. It was kind of a nice little touch in the story. Star Wars is always introducing us to personable droids. We had a cameo of C-3PO at Alderaan, and I didn't actually see R2-D2, but he could have been there too. And I remembered Leia did own those two droids before sending them to Obi-Wan. In this series, Leia had the super adorable Lola, who is so cute and adorable. Tala had Ned B, a loader droid who displays an incredible loyalty and serves us with so much emotional connection to Tala. And a little bit on that, I think there was something going on between Tala and Ned B that was more than just owner-droid relationship, or maybe there was love involved. There was definitely like some sort of companionship. He couldn't vocalize, but he seems to be a droid of action, even in the act of protecting Tala at the very end, shielding her as his very last effort. And I don't know, but I read into something into Tala's introduction of Ned B when she says, with a secret little smirk on her face, sometimes actions speak louder than words. And I was like, wow, I guess it gets lonely in the Imperial era. So yeah, that was interesting. Now, a surprising moment for me was the last episode, to see Owen and Beru were able to protect Luke pretty well. Owen has a particular grit to him that is unshakable. In the second episode, that man had a lightsaber in his face and stayed strong. I mean, I was like, wow, Owen, you are the man. And then Beru in particular was very, very spunky and went into Rambo mode when the time came. And I would totally be down for an Adventures of Young Beru on the plains of Tatooine if they ever thought that they would do something like that as a series. She gave me vibes as if she had done this before. Okay, this was not her first time at the rodeo. And yeah, I love that moment when they just said, no, we're hunkering down and we're protecting what's ours. And I just love that family dynamic. It actually makes their interaction in A New Hope a lot more special. To me, like, they're not Luke's uncle that didn't want him to explore the universe. Now it looks like two people who really wanted to keep him safe, and I love that. We also get a little moment of Darth Sidious, played by Ian McDiarmid, where he gives Darth Vader a little Palpatine therapy, if you will. He asks him if his thoughts were clear, and I think he's realizing that Darth Vader is obsessing about Obi-Wan, and that means that he has not let go of his former master. He wants to be Vader's only focus, and so that's why he calls Vader his quote-unquote friend. It's a manipulation tactic to remind Vader that all of his friends are gone, and he's the only person that he has left that is on his side. And I thought all of that was masterful, and I enjoyed it so very much. The interplay in their relationship has a lot of room for exploration, and I hope we get that in the future. Now, improvements. So this brings me to the part where I talk about where there could have been some improvement with the series. And to me, the series probably should have been a movie or a trilogy of movies as it was originally intended to be. And therefore, I just wanted to bring up the fact that the series inspired a young editor by the name of Kai Patterson to make an awesome 2-hour version of the series that got a lot of attention online. And it's pretty awesome, guys. If you ever get a chance to do so, look that up. And the one thing it does is that it proves my point that it could have been a movie. The edit wasn't perfect, and the only reason why it's not perfect is because it lacked the cooperation with the studio for pickup shots, Foley, music, and other assets that could have been at his disposal. But here's the thing. I don't prefer his edit over the series. I think it's a great version, but it changes the story quite a bit. It takes out a lot of the depth that I mentioned earlier, but it doesn't make it less good either. So I enjoy both. However, there are certain details in the story, like I said, that I enjoyed being extended in the series. So I also think it couldn't have hurt if the series were longer than 6 episodes. I know, that's so crazy. 8 to 10 episodes maybe would have been fantastic, just to build in a lot of the stuff I talked about in this review about the Inquisitors and Reva. Tell us more about Obi-Wan. There's a lot there that could have been filled, and there's a lot of information that could have been filled in. And it would have been fantastic to build more mystery, intrigue, and illustrate the world more fully and clearly. You could have gone either way, make it longer or shorter. Either way, I always pick longer because I like more. Now, the writing and the pacing in this entire series was very, very uneven, and I believe that's something that the Patterson version really toned down. We had brilliant moments that were truly incredible, but then we got clunky, bloated moments that didn't seem to work in the story, and I think the whole series really needed more doctoring to squeeze every juice of emotion out of the story. The potential was there, and sadly there's a lot of missed opportunities to get a 10 out of 10 response from the audience. There really needed to be more quiet moments to have the characters talk to each other and share stories. Again, illustrate the world through an exploration of interpersonal relationships. That was the best part of this, not so much the action and the running, the escapes and chases. It was the relationships between the characters. Relationships between the Inquisitors is an example of a lost opportunity to learn their operations in more detail and feel the fear of what their impact means to the galaxy. I felt that Tala could have been and should have been a love interest for Obi-Wan, even for a short while. There was such an amazing bit of chemistry between Tala and Obi-Wan. There was emotional weight there when she died. But if there was a romantic connection between the two, I mean, it would have just have broken my heart. And that was what was missing. I really wanted to feel like we were really going through deeper losses or gains. And that was the part that was missing. The series needed more attention to also logistical detail. There were too many little unreasonable and illogical circumstances and very little setup and payoff, which could have gone a long way to entertain the audience. One glaring example of this is the escape from the Inquisitor's base in episode 4. It was just very clunky and misshapen, really. And you can go to movies like James Bond movies that do this well, about, breaking into facilities and escaping. And when it comes to these kinds of series, I think that it would really help for the writers to know the end in mind and write their way backwards. I don't know if that's something they tried to do, but like, when you do that, you're able to do something special as far as giving people a sense of like, there was a hint of this thing that we saw in part 1, but now it's fully being realized in part 8. I felt like the writing was like, and then, which is a great way to write yourself into a corner. It's not as entertaining as something that has more setup and payoff. The shaky cam was really annoying to me. I know some people enjoy it, but it didn't work for me at all. I really would have enjoyed more classic framing similar to that was used in The Revenge of the Sith. It just created so much confusion, and I couldn't tell what was going on sometimes when the shaky cam was going. Whereas it would have been nice to have more gliding movements with the action instead of shaky cam, as if we're like trembling out of control. I also wish that this series had a little bit more polish to it. Some of the scenes were too dark. Some of the coloring was really soft. Some of the objects lacked a crisp edge. And don't get me wrong, a lot of this looks really great. I mean, really awesome. And I have a lot of respect for the artists that are behind this scenes doing a lot of the visuals. But I think a little extra time and a little extra money in the budget, the visuals could have been like just blown us away, because it's got so much potential, and we all can see that. Is there a possible series or are there a bunch of series that we could get out of this? Oh my God, yes. We could definitely get an Obi-Wan series too. There's still so much more story to tell, and Disney knows this. So I hope they do, put the thumbs up to get a series going. Some ideas that they can visit is that, I think they could give Obi-Wan a love interest, give him a chance to feel like a human being instead of this martyr and saint. I know that he had a love interest in Satine a long time ago, and maybe even seeing some memories of that heartbreak, that would be cool. So we can get into his mindset. Qui-Gon shows up at the end of the series, so it'd be great to see a Ghost Force training. They mention Quinlan Vos. There's some unfinished business with Darth Maul. And they also mention that he has a brother and a possible family. This is something they could explore. I know that Reva said that she got some information from the archives, and perhaps there's a mission for him to visit the archives, and like a secret little mission where they infiltrate the archives to get information about his family. That would be really cool, and even Reva could help. I think little Leia could have a series, but don't make it cutesy. It could be something where it's like the adventures of little Leia and the years leading up to the Galactic Civil War. I remember in the story Bail Organa talking about slavery being a big issue that he's working on. And that would be something that they can work on together. They could go on missions together, diplomatic missions to different places. There's also the path. She could have encounters with them. She has experience with Tarkin, so she can have encounters with Tarkin, or she can have encounters with young Holdo. C-3PO and R2-D2 are in her care, so we can have adventures with them. And Lola doesn't show up in A New Hope, so what happens to Lola? Does she, sacrifice herself for Leia? That's a whole nother thing right there. So there's a lot of stuff we can get out of that. Or maybe because she's such a sweetheart, she gives Lola away to someone else that needs a pet or a friend. That's really sweet. That sounds like something she would do, right? She would give Lola away. So yeah, I think a great series would be fantastic. There was buzz about a Vader series, and I'm like, yes! I mean, there's tons of stuff for Vader, as we were talking about his relationship with Darth Sidious, and a possible torture and abuse between the two of them, emotional, psychological, physical. There are memories of Padme, nightmares, and she could even be like a ghost following him around. It could do it in a horror movie style. It would be so cool. There's also the Inquisitors and his relationship with the Grand Inquisitor being kind of rocky, dealing with Project Harvester, General Tarkin, or just Tarkin in general, Night Sisters. There could be a young Boba Fett cameo, and maybe an interaction with the Path. Reva could be helping the Path, and they distrust her, and so she's being tracked by the Inquisitors, and that's why they let her live. So there's a lot of material in there that they can use and do some magic with, and I hope that someone is clever enough to put all those pieces together and make them fun and exciting. And one thing I would love for for them to do is just to tell us a little bit about the common lives and motivations of the Imperial officers. Like, what is going on with those guys? Why are they doing what they're doing? And why are they mostly all human? Like, I know that they may have been other explanations and other TV shows and I would love to see some kind of live action thing explaining all that. I understand. I haven't kept up with everything Star Wars, and maybe there's an explanation in a book or a TV series, but I would love to see something in live action, to be honest. Now, I'm not sure if there's actually enough for a Reva show. I think she should show up in other projects first. I would love a backstory on what's life like for the Inquisitors. Now, my final thoughts. I enjoyed the show. It's not perfect, but it helped me to reconcile my personal issues with Star Wars, and I think that I can call myself a fan again. And that's really saying a lot. I mean, it really is. And I don't understand everything about the franchise, but this particular offering really worked for me, giving me moments I never knew I needed. I loved it, and I'm really going to rewatch it again after I'm done with this video. I just hope that they learn from their mistakes and keep up the great work with the live action Vader that they have going on here. There's something special going on with Vader, and I'm here for it. There are those beautiful overarching themes that I live for in the series that are really inspiring to me. There are lessons about reconciling with and moving on from the past, seeking redemption if one must, showing mercy, and most important of all, embracing hope. My rating for the entire series is a 7.7. Well, that sums up my review. I hope you liked it, and if you did, I've got over 100 of these videos, so go on and browse the channel to see more reviews from me like this. Subscribe if you haven't done so already, and hit the bell icon to be the first to be notified of my next video. I want to take this moment to recognize my amazing, wonderful, incredibly awesome Patreon supporters who are responsible for helping me to produce this video. Many thanks to these incredible movie lovers for their support, and you too can be on this list by heading over to Patreon and getting a bit of behind the scenes stuff that you don't get from me on YouTube. This is Retro Nerd Girl signing off. Take care, movie lovers. I'm off to my next review.